This is the agenda for the day. This is going to be kind of a whirlwind day. Hopefully all the teachers in our program got a parking pass in the textbook, and we recorded the number on both of those. And nobody else, but poor Tom, I had to take away his parking pass. Nobody else should have a parking pass because these are like the golden parking passes, which I'll talk about in a minute. They're good for the whole summer that you're here. So, I can only give those out to the teachers today. So I'm going to give a presentation in a moment. Then we're going to have a period of time from 10 to 11 where you're going to meet with the resource team members and the fellows that are going to be working with you throughout the summer and the academic year. And I'll talk about that in my presentation. And then we are going to join, there is another group of teachers who will also be in your Engineering Foundations class. They are a part of our RET program, the Research Experiences for Teachers. There's 5 of these teachers, and Debbie Liberia, I just want to introduce her real quick because she may have to do double duty. She works on the CEEMS grant as the district coordinator, and she is also in charge of the RET program this summer, so she may be running in and out between programs. But we're going to join them in another classroom at 11:15, and that is when you'll get your laptops, because the gentleman from IT will get about the laptops and just some of the things you need to know about that. And it's easier for them to give one presentation in 2 groups of people than to give the same presentation twice. The other person I want to recognize real quick, and then everybody else will talk about throughout the presentation. Dr. Cucretti, you want to stand up real quick? Most of you have met Dr. Cucretti, but he is the principal investigator on this project. So he's the one that's really responsible for getting this grant funded through the National Science Foundation and keeping everything running as should be. So I wanted to make sure that you're aware of who he was. All right, we'll get started. Very important thing with these parking vouchers. You all received a number 2 voucher. This is how it works. It's very, very simple. When you exit any parking garage in a university, you must use what's called the cash exit. That doesn't mean that you're literally going to pay cash, but it's for someone that has vouchers like you have. Okay, so you can't go out the card exit, basically. What you will do is you'll place the number 1 card that you'll get each morning. You place that in the machine, and when the machine asks for payment, instead of paying the machine, you put in that number 2 card, okay, the one that we just handed you this morning. And what should happen every day until August 1st, the last day of the program, is it should pop the number 2 card back out to you. Because that card can be used until August 1st. And on August 1st, it's expired, and it'll take it, and it'll be gone. If for some reason it takes it and doesn't return it to you between now and August 1st, please let me know. What I will do at that point is I will notify parking services, and I will go ahead and make sure that they know that your card didn't work. That's why we took the number down, and then I will send you to parking services for you to get a replacement card. So don't despair if that doesn't happen. We will get that taken care of. So let me know as soon as possible if there's an error. Every year there's somebody that it happens to, so I'm just warning you now. Hopefully you won't. But maybe this year we'll be lucky and there'll be no problems. Go ahead and have a seat. Now I'll get somebody to help you in 1 second. All right. I literally copied and pasted this from Mrs. Schaefer. This afternoon you'll be traveling to Mount Notre Dame, that's MND, for your Engineering Foundations class. And I appreciate it ahead of time. I'm just going to appreciate your flexibility that for this first week you will travel to Mount Notre Dame for the class. As I think I told everyone in the orientation, Mrs. Schaefer, who's going to be teaching the first week of this class, and then Mr. Bowles will teach the second week. Mrs. Schaefer just had a baby, like less than 2 weeks ago. And she's teaching a class for us for a week, which is, any of you that have children know that I wouldn't be doing that. That's for sure. So we're very, very grateful. So in exchange, we wanted to have the class very close to her home so that the baby needed to eat. As you know, 2-week-old babies are not on a schedule. So if the baby needs to eat, the husband's going to bring the baby up to her. And he knows that school. He doesn't know UC's campus, so it's going to be easy for him to help her out. You will be in classrooms 114 and 113. And Mrs. Schaefer today, so that you know where you're going the first day, she's going to meet you in the lobby of Mount Notre Dame. So you want to be there promptly at 1 o'clock so that she can escort you to the classrooms where you will be. And I don't think she's going to escort you every morning, but just today she wants to make sure that you know where you need to be. The other thing that is a little bit complicated is that I guess there is construction, which I didn't even know until last week. There's construction going around Mount Notre Dame this year. So you need to be aware that they're going to use Benson. You know, the school sits on Columbia Avenue, but Benson also kind of backs up to the school. They want to use Benson as the primary entrance. And I think you will see that. It'll be probably very obvious when you go there. And it'll be obvious where you can park and where you can't because, you know, all the cars will be in one place. So you just want to be aware of that also when you go to Mount Notre Dame today. All right. So I want to just talk, first of all, just about some very general expectations for the program. And then we'll get into some more specifics. Generally, obviously, the primary thing that's important is that you attend, that you're in attendance. If we could have done this as an online program, we would have done so. But this is not the kind of program that can be done online or from home very easily, because most of what you'll be doing in workshops and in classes, you'll be doing in groups. You'll be doing hands-on projects. So it's not the kind of thing that's going to be very easy to do from home. You know, that being said, I know that there are, you know, a few people that have already said, okay, there's this one day I need to be out, you know, and talk to me if there's something like your district needs you to go to. We do have one group of teachers that we didn't find out until the 11th hour that their school needs to be out for more than a day or two for a special training. And because it wasn't the teacher's fault, they didn't know that ahead of time, it was the school, we did make a special exception. But that's not something that we generally do. So just because we're doing it in that one case doesn't mean that everybody gets to, you know, take a week off whenever they want. So keep that in mind. It's very important that you're here, especially these first 2 weeks, because literally there's only 10 class days for these first 2 weeks. So if you miss like 2-3 days in the first 10 days, well, you're going to miss a third of the class, you know, and that's not fair to yourself, and it's not fair to your team members that you're working with on projects. So that's very important. All right, so that's important to know. The other thing that's important is that we need to collaborate with each other. This is a very collaborative program. We expect that you will be collaborating with each other as teachers. There's another cohort that's already been through a year through the program. They already have a year of experience. We expect that you'll collaborate with them. And we're giving you, you know, resource team members. We're assigning you each 2 resource team members and a graduate fellow in engineering. They'll be working with you, and we expect you to collaborate with them as well. We're going to talk more about the specifics of that in a moment. But, you know, the people that succeed and do well in this program are the people that take advantage of that collaboration. The other thing that's very important is communication. That, you know, for example, if you're struggling, if you don't know what to do, that you tell somebody. The worst possible thing you can do is to kind of try to hide under a rock and think nobody's going to notice, you know, that you're struggling. Please, if you're struggling, you're overwhelmed, come to me, come to your resource team members, come to somebody to get help. Everybody at some point in this program will feel overwhelmed. That's just the nature of the beast. At some point, you'll be like, why did I sign up for this? This is really overwhelming. And by the end, you're going to feel really proud of yourself for all that you've accomplished. But at some point, you're going to feel overwhelmed. When that point hits, you need to tell us and you need to communicate. All right. The other thing that's important is that we've got assignments already set. And actually, those assignments are in your book. I'll pull up the list. But if you look under the tab that says Resource Team Fellows, we've got, right here, we've got the list. And I know it's small print, but I wanted to fit it all on one page. So you will see, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves in a moment, but you will see who you're assigned to this year when you look at this list. And I've got that here. I won't pull it up right now. So you're each going to be assigned well, let me move ahead in the presentation, and we'll get to that. For the resource team members, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves in a moment. You're going to be assigned a primary coach and a secondary coach. The primary coach is the person you'll primarily communicate with. They're kind of the one that has the final sign-off on your units. They're the one that's ultimately responsible that, you know, you get your deliverables done, that everything's of high quality. You know, they're the ones that are going to make arrangements for visits, and they might, you know, copy some other people on that communication, but they're your primary communicator. The secondary coach will also come visit your class and also provide you feedback, but really they are providing more of a balanced perspective. For each of you, you will be assigned probably an educator to work with you and an engineer to work with you. And so, you know, in most cases, you'll have both those individuals that will be providing you with some input into the units you develop and how you'll implement that with your students. They will help you with brainstorming ideas and assist with unit creation this summer. As you'll see that you're going to be meeting with them regularly over the summer to develop these things. They will be reviewing all unit documents prior to teaching. You probably can't see very well in the PowerPoint, but that is actually in red in my PowerPoint because that's very important. Right after where you see your assignments, we have what's called, and I'll introduce you to this later, we have a unit checklist. You won't be able to complete all this whole checklist over the summer because some of this has to do with after you teach or while you're teaching or after. But all the things in this first box are things that you're going to do for every unit this summer. And we would like the resource team members to review things and kind of sign off on your units this summer before you leave. And that is what I use when I issue stipend payments as well. I look at these and make sure that those are turned in and make sure units are complete. I check with the resource team members before I issue payment. During the school year, they will observe units during the implementation, and they'll provide some feedback to you. Now, this feedback is not going to go to your principal. It's not going to go to your district. So this is not like what you're doing for OTES. This is non-evaluative feedback. But I think it is valuable. One thing that you could look at it this way is, you know, if they've got some good feedback for you, this is a safe environment to give it. It's before you have that OTES evaluation. It's before you have something that counts. So use them as your allies. You know, they're going to be a big help to you. And again, we're going to talk about ways to use them in a moment. And then they're going to follow up with you after you teach the unit to make sure the documentation is in place. And as we'll talk about, they'll probably want to have a debriefing session with you to kind of go over how things went and to prepare for the implementation of the next unit. So at this time, the resource team members, if you could just stand up. And then all I want you to do is say your name for now. And we've got name tags for them because you'll be meeting with them later. So if everybody wants to kind of go through, start with Jack and just kind of give your name so they know who you are. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we'll introduce the fellows in a second. All right. Now the fellows, they have a role as well. And we introduced them for the first time last year. And we felt like it was a very good addition to our program. So we kept it in place for this year. And each and every one of you will be assigned a fellow as a first-year student in the program, so to speak. They are all working towards their doctorates in engineering. So as you can imagine, they're very bright folks. They have the pulse of what's going on in engineering today right at their fingertips. You know, they're going to have some very innovative ideas about how engineering is used right now in 2014. So what they are going to be able to do is help you come up with some really innovative ideas for your classroom. They will be well versed in technology and how to incorporate that into your units. And they're going to check and make sure all the elements of the engineering design process are present in your unit. They can assist in the classroom during unit implementation. Now they're not like student teachers, okay? So we don't want them teaching classes, but most of these units are going to involve students working collaboratively in groups on projects together. And if you've ever had students do that before, you know that it's very hard for you to get to every group every time they have a question. because there's usually 4 groups at once that have a question and need assistance. So having an extra body in the classroom that can go around and work with these students will be, we hope, an invaluable asset to you. The feedback we got from the teachers last year was that they were an invaluable asset. They also, one thing that we're going to ask everybody to do is to take pre- and post-assessment data for every unit you deliver. And they can help, if you're not familiar with how to do this in Excel, they can help to really analyze that data and graphically present it so that you can display the good work and all that your student learned as a result of these units. And then the other thing, we do have people, Derek is in the back videotaping for us, and we have someone during the school year, Debbie Haynes, that can go out and do videotaping. But sometimes the fellows can do that as well because they're in the classroom a lot. So what they can do is provide videotaping and photography support, because one of the things that you'll be doing for each unit is after it's complete, you'll develop a poster about that unit, you'll develop a video, and it's good to have video clips and photography to document what your students have done to include in those deliverables. And it's hard for you to do that while you're teaching, but the fellows can do that, and sometimes the resource team members are willing to help as well. So if I could have the fellows stand up briefly and maybe have each of you just give us your name. And again, when the introduction sessions, you'll be able to talk a little bit more about your qualifications. You want to go ahead and start? Okay, all right, great. So we have all 4 of these. And Angerman is returning to us for a second year. So he has all this expertise down in his head as far as what goes on. So he's a good resource. All right. I want to kind of go over some ways that the resource team members and the fellows can really help you. This is the way that you can gain the most benefit from this program and the most benefit from their advice. First of all, make sure that you're the ones that are initiating communication with them as much as possible. They will initiate communication with you, but they love it when you initiate with them first. And you have questions, and you want help with something. They're not mind readers. None of us are mind readers. We don't know what questions you have, what concerns you have, until you speak them out loud. So if you initiate communication and time to meet, they can be your best allies in this. Here's something that's very, very important, kind of a little pet peeve of ours in this program. It's just a timely response to email. Sometimes you'll send out an email to somebody, and it'll be days, sometimes even weeks, before somebody responds, or 2 or 3 emails will have to go out, or text messages before somebody responds. And sometimes it's simple like, I just want to schedule a time to come in your classroom while you implement this unit. Sometimes it's something very simple. And I know that people are busy, and once you work with students, obviously, you don't necessarily have time to instantly respond to email. We all get that. But within 24 hours, it seems like a reasonable thing that someone could respond, even if you don't know the answer right away. Hey, I'll get back to you by the end of the week. That seems like a fairly simple thing. So that is something that is so crucial. And I can tell you right away that it's almost like first impressions type of thing. If you're not one that responds to email in a timely manner, you'll start to kind of get a little bit of a bad reputation in this program, because people just get sick of that. They get sick of having to chase people down for a response, sometimes to a very simple request. The other thing, and you're all going to build a wiki. Denny Dupps, he introduced himself. He it's a very simple process. If you've never done it before, you're all going to build a wiki that you're going to use throughout this program. One thing that really helped last year is a couple of our teachers posted their schedule for the school year right on that wiki. And boy, that makes a world of difference, and it makes your life easier too. When you've got that bell schedule on your wiki, because you may say to a resource team member, well, I'm going to start my unit this Monday in bells 3, 4, and 5. Well, they don't know when bells 3, 4, and 5 start in your class. They might not know what your room number is. So the more you could just put right there on your wiki, then you don't have to tell people 5, 6, 7 times when bells 3, 4, and 5 are, where your classroom is. If you got it all posted there, you can say, well, see my wiki. Or there was one teacher that was super organized last year, and apparently she just had this running document of when she was going to do her units and what days would be good to visit. And it was a Google Doc that was shared, and so all the resource team member had to do was go to that Google Doc and figure it out. So that saved a lot of email communication, saved her time, saved the resource team member's time. It was a very valuable thing. The other thing that's important, because I know this comes up in your schools, and I know that you can't help it, but if a resource team member or a fellow is scheduled to visit, and all of a sudden there's an emergency assembly, there's some testing that has to be done that nobody knew about till today, make sure that you contact them and say, don't come. Some of your schools are very far from people's homes, and they're making a special trip to come and visit you. And they go all that way, and then here they're going to have to sit while your kids are in an assembly, or they're going to have to sit while you're giving an assessment. That's not a good use of anybody's time, so make sure that you contact them. The other thing that is important, some people did this and some people didn't, we didn't even think to talk about this, is that the first few times that they visit, introduce them to your class. Make sure every bell knows who that person is. Because I'm sure your students are wondering, who's this weird person in the back of the room? Who are they? What are they doing here? It's good to just introduce them. The other thing is, a lot of times they will be trying to do things to help you throughout. Maybe they'll be writing on a Google Doc or, sending you an email as they think of something. Make sure that they have your school's wireless password when they come. A lot of times they can't log on to the internet because they don't know what the school's wireless password is. And then finally, these all kind of have to do with communication. Make sure that there's follow-up communication on the unit. This kind of has to do with the last point, that they will want to meet with you after each unit is complete, each of your 3 units, to kind of debrief. And this will mostly just be your primary resource team member. So make sure that you make arrangements for that summary meeting. And this discussion could be on Skype. All the laptops that you're going to receive later today will be have the capacity for you, as has a camera embedded, so you could do Skype. So it could be that maybe you don't want to arrange a visit during the school day because you're busy. Maybe you want to meet in the comfort of your living room at 8 p.m. at night, and you can Skype with them. That's perfectly acceptable. So do something that works for you. The checklist I showed you before, keep that up to date so that they know what's going on. All of this is invaluable. The more organized you can be up front, the more that we can help you to be productive and to get the most out of this experience. All right, I want to talk about the first 2 weeks now, kind of shift gears a little bit. For this first 2 weeks, you'll be in this Engineering Foundations class, and the first 2 cohorts have told us this was really their favorite class that they took. It seems. By and large, it kind of ranked at the top. Maybe it won't be your personal favorite, but for most people it is. You will really learn a lot about challenge-based learning and the engineering design process through immersion in it in these courses. You will probably, almost everybody, get some ideas, maybe not for the units they create, but some ideas of creative things they can do with their kids around teamwork from this class. So you will learn a lot. But we're going to jam-pack a lot into the next 2 weeks, and you're going to be overwhelmed this next 2 weeks, because what we're going to do is, in addition to your class, we're going to have a lot of workshops for you that we're going to give you up front. And we'll talk about that in a minute when we talk about the schedule and the roadmap you're going to fill out today. And these workshops are going to give you the tools you need to build these units that you're going to implement this coming school year. So what's important is that you realize you will have more time to work the second 5 weeks of this program than you will the first 2. So I just want to give you that up front. The five remaining weeks after these first 2, there'll be a lot of downtime where you'll be here on campus, but you'll have access to this room, another space where you can kind of just work, just really dig down and work on developing those units. But we've got to give you a lot of information up front in order for that to happen. This first week, since you'll be at Mount Notre Dame, on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, unfortunately, you will be in 2 places. You will be at Mount Notre Dame and you will be at UC. But on Tuesday, Thursday, we're going to come to you at Mount Notre Dame because your class doesn't end until 2:30. So what we want to use that time for, say tomorrow, I'm going to bring as many resource team members as can make it to kind of sit down with you and brainstorm about what you envision these units to look like in your classroom next year. And one thing that would be very helpful is if tomorrow you brought your curriculum map or you kind of knew your pacing guide or what you were going to teach when this year, because that will help kind of start to formulate the big plan for the school year. The schedule, I'll click on this real quick, but the schedule, I gave you a copy, a printed out copy of the schedule here in your binder. I gave it to you two ways. I gave it to you with these bubbles, and I gave it to you in an agenda format. So I wasted a lot of paper to make it as clear as possible. Now, obviously, some of these courses you're not taking. So, usually, for example, once you get to the weeks 3 through 7, you've got, there, in the afternoon, there's going to be models and applications in physical science, engineering applications in math for high school math teachers, and or earth sciences, or if you're not in class, time to work on units. So obviously, you're only going to be in one of those things at once. I'm not expecting you to be in 4 places at once. We have a hard program, but not that hard. So, so keep that in mind. So you will have, since you're only taking 2 classes for the weeks 3 through 7, you will have significant time to work on your units and to meet with resource team members and fellows during the week. So keep that in mind as you go. I will be, if there are updates to this calendar, I will put it electronically, and I'll try to send out an email as well. Again, this printout was accurate as of last Friday. If something needs to change, I will change it on the Google Calendar, which I've shared with everybody. I've shared the link, but I will also try to email everybody as well, if, say, a room number has to change for a day or something like that. And with your courses, it may very well be that, I gave you the room number that they gave me, but they may say, oh, today I want to meet in my lab, and it's in such and such location. Obviously, if your professor tells you to go to a certain place, go there, even if, my calendar says differently. It's just good common sense. All right. Couple things that we're going to work on for this year. I keep talking about these units we're going to develop. This is our plan for the units, that we will do 3 overall. We do want you to complete all the preparation for them in the summer. We've been told the first year we made a mistake. People only finished 1 unit, and they had the ideas for numbers 2 and 3, and they completed 2 and 3 during the school year. They all told us, don't do that again. Make us do it all in the summer, because once we have kids in front of us, we don't have time to do that. So you got to do it. It makes the summer hard, but boy, you'll be grateful come fall when you don't have to work on these units anymore. So there's 3 units. 1, we would like you to adapt from one that's been previously created from another CEEMS teacher, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And 2, quote-unquote original ideas. Now, by original ideas, you can steal, you find a good idea on the internet, you can use it. You find a good idea in one of your classes, you can use it. Doesn't mean that you're the only one that's ever thought of it. It's just maybe different from one that's already been created by another CEEMS teacher. Okay, so the 3 units overall. Again, 1 would, and I said first cohort, I should have said first or second. I apologize for that. That was a typo. But what I have done for you, and I put this on our wiki, which you will see, is I've created kind of a master document with hyperlinks, and I will send this to everybody. It's on this wiki that's going to be shared with you, and it takes a while for it to come up. But basically, I don't know why it's not populating. Well, I will send you the link. But it's a document that has all the units that have been created with hyperlinks to where you find that unit, what grade level is for, what teacher created it, what was the subject matter, so that you can go and start browsing ones that you might think would be a good fit. So I will send that to everybody so that you can start. Thank you. Covered part of my next slide. Thank you very much for that. So a couple other things to keep in mind to that point is that sometimes you can almost use it almost exactly as it was developed by the other teacher. Other times it might need significant adaptations, and that is fine. For example, last year we had someone from cohort 2 who taught Algebra 2 pre-calculus. He took a unit on using math to build bridges that was meant for middle school students, And he adapted it so it was more appropriate for high school math. You know, it was more about parabolas rather than, you know, scale and proportion and all this other types of things. So he adapted it. And sometimes we had a couple people, too, that took a unit that was intended for science and made it so that it was more of a math focus. So that's okay. So sometimes that's the fit that you will find. It's like the concept was good, but, you know, you want to go in a different direction. Or sometimes you think, wow, I don't know why they spend so much time focusing on this. I want to focus more on this part. That's fine, too. You can make adaptations. This actually helps us, too, with the besides what Dr. Cugretti was explaining, it also helps us with the iterative process. You know, you're having your students go through the iterative process where they design, test, redesign, test again. This helps us to do the same with the units that we create. All right, the deadline for this modified unit will be July 3rd. And I've got a list of expectations in your binder, too. This has all the deadlines listed. That's when we would expect you to have that complete and to your resource team member for review. All right, and the original units, again, as I said before, that doesn't mean you can't borrow ideas. And we're going to give you more of what, when we say something is due, we're going to give you more idea of what is due in the coming days when we talk about our templates and how to complete our templates and what we expect in that regard. So we're going to inundate you with that information. But as far as deadlines, and again, this is all laid out in your binder, July 18th is the deadline for Unit 2, and for Unit 3, July 25th. Because the last week of the program, what we want you to do is put the finishing touches. First of all, we need to give the resource team members time to look at something before the program's over. And secondly, we need, you know, you might be finishing up your poster for the final day. You'll be finishing up the video for your final day. So those are kind of the deadlines. Now, keep in mind these are only a week apart. So work ahead. You know, these are like worst case scenario, but the best case scenario is that you're working ahead on these things and you're getting this done. Anytime you can get something done early and be ahead of schedule, all the better. Okay, so we will give you more information on that. We do have a closing day showcase on the very last day of the program. We will not have classes. We will have a couple things. We will have a time when we will show a partially developed video that each of you have worked on. And the video will be highlighting plans for one unit. This video you'll go back and refine after you complete the unit because you'll want to add student photos or video clips, maybe some student results. Any changes you had to make in the unit, you'll probably add that. But then we'll also have a 3-panel poster that's due. And again, we'll talk about that more in coming weeks, so don't fret about that now. But that'll have a summary of your 3 units that you intend to teach throughout the year. So we'll talk more about that in the coming week or two. But I wanted to let you know the deadlines for those 2. The deadline for the poster one is especially critical because I don't know if you've seen the posters that we're going to be using, but they're ones that we actually print out. They're 3 foot by 4 foot. They're really nice, on glossy paper, color, high resolution posters. They're things that you're going to be very proud to display in your classroom. But it takes 15 to 20 minutes per poster to print these babies out. So I can't get this the morning of and have it printed for you. You know, that would be an impossible task because, you know, we've got, you know, 35, 36 teachers in our program. So I need those by that Wednesday, July 30th, so I can have sufficient time to print them out. The videos are a little easier because we're going to show you a way to just share those with me so that I can show them on Friday. All right. As far as the school year implementation, we'll go over this again and again, but I just want to talk to you about it now so that you're aware. You'll implement the units. The resource team member and fellows will help observe. Something that we will ask for each unit. What we will do, and I think I explained this in the orientation, if all your units are complete at the end of the summer, you'll get a stipend payment of $3,500. The rest of the stipend payment we will dole out as you complete each unit and turn in all the deliverables. So for each unit you complete, you'll get a $700 payment. Plus, at the end of the year, you'll get a $400 payment for the PD requirement, which we'll talk about in a minute, and presenting at the STEM conference. So that'll add up to $2,500. So the total of your $6,000 stipend. So what we want for each unit is we want pre and post assessment results. And then the other thing, and this can be just in picture form, you don't have to give us the physical work, but 3 examples of student work, high, medium, and low. Like, for example, if they designed something, let's say they designed a structure to test on a shake table. You take a picture of 3 different structures. One was really good, one was kind of in the middle, one was really bad. So we kind of know the range of what they look like. There will be surveys, and we'll have the evaluator come in at some point in the summer and talk to you about this. But we have 2 surveys that your students will complete during each unit. One will be at the very beginning of the unit, and we'll talk about that as the summer goes on. As you introduce the big idea to your students, we'll talk about the challenge-based learning process. And then one that they complete at the end of the unit. And then you'll have 3 online surveys that you will complete as well. All of these surveys are in, copies as they are in your evaluation tab. You can see what the surveys look like. The student surveys we do not expect to change. I did put a very prominent watermark on the teacher surveys because we did get some feedback from teachers that there's some duplicative questions on those surveys. So we may do kind of an analysis to see if we need to just take out a question or 2 here and there so that we can reduce your workload. But these are done online anyway. You should not be doing paper surveys of your teacher surveys. So I just wanted to give you those so you have an idea of the kind of questions we ask up front. And then the other thing that you will do is complete your video and your poster for each unit with photos, video clips of the units in action. And the other thing I do want to bring up at this time is that we have the issue of photo releases. A lot of schools already ask students, to fill out a photo release at the beginning of the year. If your principal feels like that's adequate to cover the CEEMS project, then I'm fine with that as well. You just need, he or she just needs to send me an email letting me know that so I can keep it on file. Otherwise, and we have this in the evaluation section as well of your binder, we have a photo release for the students to complete. And if you're in the kind of school that most people are, that you need to give that the first day of class, that's why we give it to you now, so you have it. I know a lot of you have a limit on clicks, how many copies you can make. Don't worry, anything you need multiple copies of, I can do for you. We will make sure you have adequate copies of student surveys. We will make sure you have adequate copies of photo releases. All you need to do is ask. We can do all that for you. We don't have a problem copying things. That's not an issue for me at all. But we don't want you taking photos and videos of kids that don't want to be photographed. I mean, that's the bottom line. Is we don't want to get in trouble. We don't want you to get in trouble. So we need to respect that, obviously. But that's an important piece to keep in mind. I was going to say something else on that, but fortunately the thought left me. All right. I don't have the dates for you yet. What I'm going to do is look at everybody's parent-teacher conference schedules, because that's always the big thing when planning these community practice meetings is parent-teacher conferences. Twice a year we'll all come together to meet and kind of talk about how things are going. I will work on those dates this summer and get some feedback from you, and then we'll decide on times. And the third time we meet will be during the STEM conference, so that to kind of reduce the number of times you have to come to campus. All right, the other thing that we want you to do as part of this program, I know what I was going to say. A lot of times people are like, why bother with these videos, these posters, it's so much, why not just worry about what you're going to deliver to the students? I had a text message recently, and I'm going to talk about this in this presentation. We've had teachers over this past year, more and more, are doing presentations at regional and national conferences about the work they've done through this program. What you're doing is very innovative stuff. I don't know if what you're going to learn are things that other people are going to want to emulate in their classrooms. And we had a teacher from the first cohort. She actually just got done presenting at NSTA with the STEM Expo in New Orleans. And by the way, we paid for her to go to New Orleans, the hotel room, registration. I mean, she got to go to the NSTA conference and to New Orleans on our dime because she presented. It's a pretty big benefit of being a part of this program. But one thing she said was, she sent me a text the morning after a presentation. She said, okay, as much as I griped and whined about doing the video and the poster, they really came in handy when I presented. And she said she took her poster and she displayed it outside the room where she presented. She said there were people coming in just because they saw that poster, and they were intrigued about what she had done. And everybody loved the video she did. I mean, there was just so much positive feedback from other teachers. And then she realized this is why they wanted us to spend time doing quality work on this. So I just share that story with you so you kind of get a perspective. What you're doing is not just for you, it's for other teachers. We're going to display all this stuff on our website. I mean, this is for other teachers to learn. As I mentioned in the orientation, we're making a very heavy investment in 100 teachers over 5 years so that it not just impacts you, but impacts other people as well. With that being said, we want everybody to do 2 PD workshops a year, and that could be, and we'll talk about ways that you can do that, and there's a STEM conference in May that everybody will do some sort of presentation at. And I'll get you that date as soon as it's solidified. You can present in pairs or teams. I know there's a lot of people that are coming here with other teachers from their school. You can present in pairs or teams, that's no problem. One really nice thing is we have money available for refreshments and supplies. So if you want to intrigue people to come and you want to offer food, we can do that. We've got money for that. We've got money for supplies if you want to have them do a hands-on project as part of the workshop. We have, and this is in the evaluation tab of your folder as well, we have sign-in sheets and evaluation forms that we want people to complete as part of being in this when they attend the PD. And part of what we need that for is, honestly, and you'll see sign-in sheets all the time here, anytime I feed you, I have to have you sign in. That's just a UC rule. I can't get around it. So anytime I feed you, I have to have you sign in. And that'll be the same. If you feed somebody on our dime, you got to have them sign in. It's just the way it works. Plus, we like to keep track of how many people go through these PD workshops. A couple PD opportunities I want to talk to you about. One is coming up, actually, if you want to be proactive and get one of yours out of the way. On July 21st, we will let this count as PD for you. There's a group of, the Urban League is bringing a couple hundred middle school and high school students to campus for a summit. And we want to provide some sessions for them to explore the engineering design process. So we want to have some very brief design challenges for those students to do. Now, I'm going to kind of put the fellows in charge of this, but they would love to have some teachers help them. And this might be a great opportunity. Let's say you have a challenge you want to try with your students, but you're not sure it's going to work. You could do a beta test. You could say, let's see if this works with these real live middle school, high school students, and then, it really helps you to gather some feedback and try it once before you do it in your own classroom. So that's a great opportunity, and I will count that as one of your PDs. You'll have something done even before the summer ends. Staff meetings, department meetings, a real easy way to get part of this done, to share it with your staff. And then conferences. There's a wealth of opportunities, both regionally and nationally. And we have funds to cover expenses, whether it be mileage. If it's an overnight stay, we have funds for that. All you have to do is ask me. But you do have to be aware that for conferences, you can't decide, well, there's a conference next week, I think I'll go, and maybe I'll present. You have to apply to present months in advance. So you have to be very aware of deadlines when it comes to that. Some of you are going to do great things, so we'd love for you to show that off. Okay, I'll talk about purchasing briefly, and then we need to move on to our sessions. Every one of you will have $300 for supplies. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the procedure for ordering. I have, and this is actually in your very last tab. Instead of bringing these up on a hyperlink, I'm just going to show them to you. I have like a purchasing form, which I will send to everybody, and any information that's here is also electronically available. We have on a wiki site. You can use this purchasing request form. And then I also have kind of just some documentation that tells you what you can buy, what you can't buy, what to do about this or that. Just a lot of rules and regulations about purchasing. A couple things I'll go over with you. So you see the purchasing form. The other thing that I accept is something like this. I've had teachers build spreadsheets. They tell me what they want, what's the quantity, what's the vendor. Something that's very, very important is this whole idea of this, see if I can get this little thing to work. I don't know if I can. This justification line talks about why you need this. I buy some crazy stuff, and it's a wonder I still have a credit card with the university. It really is, considering some of the things I buy. I mean, this person I think wanted, lemonade frozen concentrate, and you're like, why? But she was using it for a lesson. There was a good reason for it. But I just need that. So if somebody comes up and says to me, why did you buy this person a fish tank? I can tell them. It's not just because we want to have fish in our office. So it's very important, and I really need the URL. I really need you to do the pre-work and find out where can I get this. Don't just tell me, I need a bunch of safety knives. I don't know what kind you want. You need to give me a little more detail than that. So that's really.
Is the template on the wiki?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah, the template is, and then justification is very, very important. Save your packing slips, and the next time you see me, give me the packing slips. I keep that with my documentation. So if you get stuff from Amazon, save those Amazon packing slips. I'll give you an address that you can send those to and mail those back to me. I have this question every year. What if I buy materials myself? Here's the problem with that. What if you buy something and I tell you, oh, you know what, you weren't allowed to get that, and then you spent your money? That's a problem. The other problem is I can never, under any circumstance, reimburse you for sales tax. We just can't pay sales tax as part of this. I go through so many hoops to get tax exempt with all these different vendors. You would not believe the amount of time I have to spend on that. So it is always best if you can have me buy it. Now, occasionally there will be a circumstance where I'll say, like with the lemonade concentrate, I just told her, go ahead and go to Kroger's yourself and get that. Get me the receipt afterwards and I'll reimburse you. There are very rare circumstances where that does work and it makes more sense, but always check with me first. It's better to check with me and make sure that can be covered and I can take care of it than to find out it can't be. So you always want to check with me first before you go doing that. Because I know this last minute things happen. It's like, oh my gosh, we ran out of this. I had to run the Staples and get it. I understand that happens, but try to make that the exception rather than the rule. The other thing is Home Depot is much better for me to order from than Lowe's. I don't know why. I love Lowe's myself for my own home, but they make tax exempt a nightmare. So if you can at all possible, pick Home Depot and not Lowe's. All right. If you have a principal coming or has come in the past to the Administrator Academy next week, they will have an addition $1,000 per teacher to spend on a variety of things. Okay, so that's a very big benefit. So some of you have 2 people maybe coming from your school. That's $2,000 that they'll have. You can use it for additional unit supplies. Maybe you want to take your students on a field trip related to a CEEMS unit you're going to do. Maybe you're going to take them down to the Mill Creek, for example. We can help with expenses for that. Maybe you want to take some professional development related to your CEEMS units. We can do that. We've had people take, for example, attend conferences about technology because they feel like this piece of technology is going to help me with this unit. There's clear justification given and we approve it, we can do that. What happens with this money is people want to know, well, was your principal going to get a check when they show up? No, they're not going to get a check. I'm going to write down that this is how much money they have in the fund. What you have to do is they have to email me and say, this is how I want to spend it. So you have to come up with a plan. And you can do it piecemeal throughout the year if you want. If you want something out of this fund, you do have to get permission from your administrator that comes. Just, have this person email me, yes or no, they approve this expense. And I just keep that as part of my documentation. The one warning I will give is that generally NSF funds cannot be used for technology. So I can't just buy a bunch of iPads for your students, for example, for use any time. Unless there's a very specific connection to CEEMS involvement, and we have a way to document that. For example, I just had somebody buy a very specific camera with his money. But he had to give a very clear justification of why that was, and I had to go to Dr. Cagretti and get him to approve or disapprove that. Somebody else used it for clickers, the clicker systems that they use for kids. And they're using it for other things too. They're using it for OAA prep as well. but they had to say how they were going to use that in the CEEMS units. You know, it's very important that we keep that in mind. All right. Next, and I'm sure we're running late here, I want to give you an opportunity to meet with your resource team members and your fellows. If you look in your binder, after the many, many pages of schedule that I've given you, you will have a document of expectations. That's important for you to review on your own time. And then at the very back, so this is towards the end, the last 4 or 5 pages are what's called a roadmap. You are going to have a chance now to meet with your resource team members and to complete this roadmap. A couple things that are key here on this roadmap is, number one, we want everybody to exchange contact information and to know, okay, what's the best email to get in contact with you with? We talked about how email is important in this program. Well, what's your preferred email? You know, do you use your Gmail account? Do you prefer your school account? This is important kind of stuff to talk about. You know, if maybe you're someone that if there's a last minute problem, you'd rather get a text message, you know, then we obviously need to exchange cell phone numbers. So that is important to complete. The other thing we want you to do, we're kind of changing something this year. Past 2 years, what we did during our quote-unquote coaching sessions or our time to work on units, we always had a resource team member kind of babysitting. Like they'd sit in a room, and if anybody had a question, they'd come up and ask. But what we figured out last year, the problem was, what would happen is that, you know, Jack would be here, and maybe, you know, he hasn't seen Mindy in a while, so he'd go up to Mindy and say, Mindy, how are your units coming? And so Mindy would have to stop what she was doing and show Jack. And then Mary would come in, and she'd say, oh, I want to talk to Mindy. So then she'd interrupt Mindy again, and Mindy'd have to talk about her units. And Mindy really had no preparation that these little meetings were coming, and it kind of ruined her train of thought a couple times. So the feedback we got was that let's go ahead and schedule time to meet throughout the summer ahead of time. So when you look at the summer and when is your quote-unquote free time, and that means time you'll be on campus but you won't be in class, what are some times that you can work with your resource team member, your fellow, you know, and so I have about 6 check-in times and dates. Now, I would not expect that you meet with every person 6 times. That would be 18 meetings. That'd be a little much. Maybe you can get it so that you have 2 or 3 members of the team available each time to talk. Or maybe you meet with one person 3 times, the other people you meet with 3 times. You know, there could be a whole combination of things, but we want you to have regular meetings where you kind of sit down and show people where you're at and talk about your questions or concerns. This doesn't mean if you need more help, you can't get it. All you have to do is email somebody and ask. But we're going to kind of move away from the babysitting mentality to more of the scheduled appointment mentality. And that's going to be a change for everybody this year. The other thing that I have for you, and for you there won't be a lot of choices, is a list of all the workshops we're going to offer throughout the year. This is in addition to the courses. As you can see in this column here, many of these are required for you. Okay, so for you as a member of the 3rd cohort, there's just some information you have to have. Others are electives. That means you can come if you want, or if you don't feel like you need it, you don't have to come. We would like you to choose at least one elective that you really think this would really benefit me. So every person should click off one elective, all right, from this list, and make sure that you have that on there. So keep that in mind as you fill that out, and you might want to talk with your resource team members about what that'll look like. At the end of today, if you could take this out, put your name on it, what I'm going to do is scan copies and send it to every member of your team so that we all have it, we all know what the roadmap looks like, okay, for everybody. So I'm going to collect this at the end of the session we're going to have. So, I'm sorry.
What, the checkoff sheet or the...
I think we all, well, the one thing about the checkoff sheet is it'd be good to know, and maybe for you guys, maybe you just write down the name of the any of the elective workshops you're going to attend. Because here's what's happening. If we see nobody's going to come to a certain session, we need to know that so we can just cancel it or figure out what to do about that. We kind of need to know with the electives who's going to come and who's not going to come. So that's the one important piece of information. But the rest of it, you're right, Barbie, probably we don't need. So, look at my time. I'm sure I've gone over, and I apologize for that. Yes, I am, but that's all right. We have a little bit extra time. So if you could maybe maybe we'll change this to 15 minutes because I want to make sure people have a break. For 15 minutes, you're going to meet with your so if you look back on your list of resource team members, you're going to meet with your primary resource team member. And then for 15 minutes, we'll meet with your secondary resource team member. And then for the next 15 minutes, you'll meet with your fellows. So you'll kind of get introduced to everybody. Now, what I would like you to do, like for the fellows, the first 2 meetings, just kind of join in, groups that are in progress. Likewise, the resource team members for the fellows session kind of join in, maybe people that you want to get to know. So maybe if all the resource team members can stand up and kind of move to a different part of the room, and then you find in this column your primary resource team member, and go ahead and find that person and meet with them now. So if you want to go ahead, you guys want to stand, and welcome back, everybody. It's good to see everybody again. Glad you're back again for a second round. This is what we're going to do this morning. I think I got everybody that came in. Did I come and get a parking pass? Yes, okay, good. So as you know, probably, I'm sure Dr. Dave explained to you, the pass for Victory Parkway, you keep that in the dashboard of your car. And then the other pass, the number 2 pass I just gave you, is the one when you're here on main campus that you can use. So you remember how to do it. You put the 1 in, you put the 2 in. If you ever have a problem, let me know. So we're going to do that presentation, and then I'll tell you when we get to the part that we're going to do from 2 to 3, I'll share that with you. First things first. If anybody, and I'm sure, and I know there are some of you that are still waiting on stipends from this past school year. Kind of here's the procedure for finishing up, just if anybody is unclear. Most of you have this down by now. Don't be shy about asking for your money. I do not every day just check and magically see if everybody's done. That would take me way too much time. So what I prefer you do is email me, I believe I am finished with unit blah, blah, blah. Then what I will do is I will double check with your primary resource team coach and the evaluation team to make sure that they have everything that they need. And then if they say it's a go, then I request that stipend from my colleague. I request that she posts it. And if you have direct deposit, usually you get it within about 5 days. If you think that you should have gotten a payment and you haven't, that's something to email me as well, and we'll work that out. But that's kind of what I've been doing. So that's the procedure. If you have a question about what's outstanding, it's kind of like if your students would ask you that on the fly, if they come up to you, now if I turn this in, what will my grade be? Of course you don't know off the top of your head. So email me that, because I'm not going to be able to figure that out for you just off the top of my head. I'm going to have to go to several documents to look. And already some of you have told me that you have difficulties with your current laptop. The procedure for that, again, is to email me. If you can't email me, some people have such significant trouble they can't even email. So then you need to tell me. But if you have trouble, let me know, and I will talk to IT. Probably what we will have to do is I will have to get you a loaner laptop for a couple days, because I can't guarantee that they're going to come and fix it in 10 minutes. That's just not, they've got other things to do other than take care of us. So, you just need to be patient and make sure that with your data, it's always a good idea to have important documents on some kind of cloud server or somewhere, or on a flash drive backed up or something, so you can get to it. So if you need to get a loaner, you can still do your work. All right, we talked about parking passes already. Everybody's got that down. Okay. The expectations, we'll go through this quickly with you all because you know already what the expectations are. Obviously, to attend regularly. As you know from last year, you're working in teams. You're working, doing hands-on projects. This is not something that's easy to do from home. So I mean, if you need to miss, let me know. Let your professor know if you're going to miss any class time. It's very important. I mean, you should treat it like you would any other college class. If you're going to miss a lot of time, then your grade will suffer, and you're going to have problems. If somebody's got significant conflicts, again, talk to me. Every situation we have to look at somewhat differently. Especially these first 2 weeks, you're only going to have class for 10 days. So if you miss a significant portion of the first 2 weeks, that's a good portion of that class you're going to miss. So we'll need to talk about that. Obviously, collaboration is important. You guys are good at collaborating with each other. Continue to collaborate. We're going to talk about specific ways to collaborate with the resource team and the fellows in a minute. That is important, and communicate. Just as you did last year, and many of you were good at this, when you're overwhelmed, you're confused, you have concerns, come to us, tell us. We want to be here to help. All right, we have coaching assignments. If you have, now I have a third cohort book in front of me, so mine's not going to look exactly the same, but right after the resource team tab, I have the list of coaching assignments, and it's also on our wiki. The same wiki you used last year. You can find the same document. I'm going to introduce you to the new fellows here in a moment. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, actually. Generally, I tried to keep some consistency for everyone, that at least one coach was the same. We had us do some switching because it made it easier. A few of you still have fellows. Some of you do not. And let me explain the reason for that. If you did not have an engineer as your primary or secondary resource team coach, I made sure you had a fellow. Because I want someone on your team to have an engineering perspective. So it was not like I thought, oh, this person really struggles. They need 3 people instead of 2. It had nothing to do with that, all right? It really was about who your primary and secondary coach were, and I wanted to make sure you had that engineering perspective. So everybody in the third cohort got a fellow, but only the ones that didn't have an engineer as their primary or secondary coach got a fellow from your cohort. So that was how I did that. And again, we'll have them introduce themselves here in a second. Just as we did last year, your resource team primary coach will be the primary one to communicate with you and to debrief with you after the unit, make sure that all your deliverables are in place and complete. They will be the one that will kind of be the final sign-off on your units on the checklist. But everybody on your team can provide, can help you brainstorm ideas, assist with unit creation, observe the unit, provide some feedback to you. Again, as we'll talk about and more specifically in a moment, these really should be like your best allies, because these are the people that are going to come into your classroom, make some observations, but nobody's reporting it to your principal. Nobody's reporting it to the Ohio Department of Education. So this is a kind of a freebie, a way to kind of get an evaluation of some feedback without any potential negative consequences as a result. It's a way to make improvements. Obviously it's good to follow up after everything is over. Again, we'll talk about that more in a second. So the fellows, again, just to kind of review, if you're lucky enough to have one, they've got some really innovative ideas about what's going on in engineering today, and they can help you with that. And during the summer, if you don't have a fellow assigned, feel free to pick their brain if they're around, and you want some help with an area maybe that they have some expertise in. As many of you used them well last year in your classroom to help with implementation, help with there were student groups that you need more than one body to kind of get to all the groups in your classroom. And again, to help you with the display of the pre-post assessment data. So I'm going to have, at this time, Anchorman, he's still with us, and he guarded your food, so you should really be grateful to him. Made sure that all the freshmen coming for engineering didn't take the food. But with the other 3 that are new, please stand up and maybe briefly kind of introduce yourselves, if you don't mind. So those are the 4 fellows we have for this year. So we have, Anchorman is the same consistent face, and then we have 3 new people that I think are going to be fantastic to work with. And you'll have a chance to meet with them if you're assigned to them at between 2 and 3. All right. We kind of came up with some ways, kind of brainstormed some ways that you can really get the most help from your resource team members and your fellows. One way is, instead of just waiting for them to initiate communication with you, for you to kind of take the bull by the horns and initiate communication with them. You know, if you've got a question, you've got a concern, you want to know how something's going to work in your classroom, go ahead and be the first initiator of that communication. You do that, and that will really go a long way with them and really help make their job easier. The other thing that, I think is just so important, and we kind of drill in this program a lot, and I know everybody during the school day, we get busy with students. Obviously, email is the last thing on your minds, and it should be when you're in front of kids. You should be focused on your students. But a timely response to email is really critical in this program, especially if you're trying to schedule observations. I mean, sometimes people are finding out that, oh, I'm starting a unit tomorrow. Well, they might already have something planned. They might not be able to make it then if they're finding out so late in the game. So if you can respond within 24 hours to people, it makes their jobs way easier. And it just will run much more smoothly, and they won't have to send repeat emails or repeat texts to people to find out what's going on. The other thing that a few people, especially in the first cohort, did last year, and we're going to ask everybody to do on their wiki this year, is to put your bell schedule right on the wiki. And that way, if you say, come observe my second bell, we're starting, they know when the second bell is. It would be helpful, too, if you put your room number on there, especially if it's changed, so they know, okay, I'm going to come to, that way you can just say to them, my bell schedule's on the wiki. You don't have to type out, my first bell is from blah, 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 to blah, blah, blah. That's got to get old for you to do again and again, too. Whereas if you got it all in one place, it makes your life that much easier. Some of you may even have a better system than this, and if so, that's great. The other thing that's important is if for some reason that the resource team member can't come, that you scheduled a visit, but gosh, there's an emergency assembly, or they've got to do some assessment you weren't anticipating. That happens. We all understand that happens. Let them know. Say if something changes, I'll text you, or if something changes, I'll send you an email. And make sure you do that, because as some of you know, some of you your schools are very far away from where the resource team members live or the fellows live, and so for them to make that trip unnecessarily is kind of a waste of their time. All right, another thing that you've got a whole new group of students this year. You know who the resource team members and the fellows are. Your students don't. So don't forget the critical thing of when they first visit each bell or each class to introduce them, because your students probably wonder, who is this strange person sitting in the back of the room? This is who they are. This is why they're here. Makes life a lot easier. The other thing that would be helpful is if you provide the school's wireless password. So they know this is how I get on, the internet while I'm here. So if I need to check email, or if I need to go look up something to help a student or to help you, they can do that seamlessly without having to interrupt you in the middle of class. Okay, just in a few things as you follow up, make sure that there's a lot of follow-up communication on the unit as you go. Probably all the resource team members will want to have a debriefing meeting with you after each unit is complete. That's something, don't forget, your laptops are equipped with a camera. You can Skype and do that. So instead of having to take time out of the school day, maybe you want to Skype with them at 8 o'clock at night from the comfort of your own living room. That works. Do what works with your schedule. But that's something, it's important to have those conversations, but try to make it at a time that's convenient to you. Use technology to make your life a little easier. Keeping your checklists up to date so that your resource team member or your fellows kind of know where you're at and what they still need. That really helps as well. And, as we said before, just some kind of summary meeting. A lot of you were really good about using the fellows and the resource team members to deliver surveys to me. Keep doing that. That's one of the uses, too, of a summary meeting, is that while they're there, you can say, well, here are all the surveys. And then they're responsible for getting it to me. You don't have to worry about that. That makes your life a lot easier. Okay. All right. I assume that Dr. Dave talked to you about the little change in schedule for the class. Did he mention that this morning? Okay. All right. Of course, then it all got changed for him again. He probably explained that his son is graduating from medical school. So he wanted to make that ceremony. So I just wanted you to be aware of that there is that change of schedule. Obviously, these first 2 weeks, you'll be doing a lot with that class and, really getting more embedded in the engineering design process and some of the things that he has to show you. I will keep the Google Calendar that I sent you all. I'll try to keep that updated as much as I can. I also have a schedule printed out in 2 different ways in your binder. I realize there's a page missing. Somebody pointed that out. So I'll fix it. But I have one way where there's bubbles. And then if you go to behind the bubbles, I have it printed out in agenda format. Now keep in mind, if you refer to the paper copy, that this was accurate as of last week. If I make a change to a room, you're not going to know that unless you go on the electronic version. I will also try to send an email whenever I do that, but then I will also change on the Google Calendar. So please keep that in mind if you're using the paper copy, that it's only as updated as of last week. Okay. Now, and you guys we have not changed much since last year. Just like last year, you'll do 3 units overall, but 1 will be a revision from the previous year, if applicable. If you have changed what you're teaching significantly, like if you've moved from one content area to the other, like maybe you were teaching biology last year and now you're teaching physics, well, obviously some things might need to change. But if possible, do a revision from last year of your 1 of your units and then 2 new ones. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about that now. When you're thinking about what to revise from last year, a couple things to keep in mind. Number 1, and this is going to be the default mode that I would do if I were in your shoes, but let's try to avoid doing this. Just choosing something because it was like perfect and it needs very few revisions and you're ready to go. That's the easy route, but I think what you would learn more from and we would learn more from is instead if you consider choosing a unit that had a good overall concept, but the details or delivery maybe could use some refinement. Like there were some things that you saw, if I had done it differently this way, it would have been a fantastic unit. So considering choosing something in that category, and I would really encourage you as you choose that to have that discussion with your resource team members, like what would be the best unit to revise. Now, keeping in mind that you also have to choose a unit that best serves your students' educational needs. So perhaps you're going to choose the unit that has, the heaviest content of, math or science. This is the content that they need the most. This is content that they traditionally have trouble with. So I want to really hone down on this. So you consider that as well. But this is something you should really choose a discussion with some of your coaches. Okay, and that'll be due. It's kind of a late due date, so I'm hoping that you'll kind of get started on 2 and 3, or 5 and 6 for you guys. In addition, but I'm keeping the same due date for you as I have for cohort 3. So the due date on this is July the 3rd. And then with the original units, as we said last year, just because we say original doesn't mean you can't borrow ideas from each other. You can't borrow ideas from something you see on the internet, from your classes. Don't reinvent the wheel. If you see something great, feel free to use it again. But that July 18th and July 25th are the 2 due dates there. Again, they're very close together, so it would be unrealistic to think that you couldn't even think about the 3rd unit until July 19th. I mean, that would probably not be realistic. So keep that in mind. We just wanted the final due dates to be different. Yeah, Barb.
So is the expectation for us to teach all 5 units then from you?
You would teach, no, you would teach 3. Let me clarify that. 2 of them, if you want to reteach them, you can, but you do not have to do as part of this project. And we would not expect you to do surveys. Just do 3. Yeah, you're not going to be teaching all 5. They're in your back pocket, and if you want to do them or use some activities, that's great. And I think some people from the first cohort did that, but then they didn't have to do the surveys. They didn't do all the extras that run along with it. So that's a very good question. I'm glad you asked that. Okay, and then you know what the deliverables are. You know about the poster session at the end, the video. It's exactly the same. We did not make any significant changes. But I do want to draw your attention to the due dates. Those are important. As you know by seeing the posters, You see why I need those Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. because I need time to print them. And that takes time. And sometimes our printer doesn't always cooperate. So, I need plenty of time to do that. And then, by noon that Thursday, I'd like to have everybody's videos in line so I can make sure the presentation is organized for Friday. All right. And you all know what the deliverables are. Again, the only thing that we may make some changes on for this year is based on some feedback we received from some of you and from the first cohort. Some people said that there's some duplicative items in some of the teacher surveys that were online. Like it seemed like they were asking some of the same questions again. What the evaluator wants to do is kind of look at that and maybe make some changes. But she has to be careful if she takes out an item that doesn't ruin the reliability of the instrument. So she has to do some work to make sure that is retained. So what I have done in your, what you have in your binder, just like last year, I have all the surveys and under the evaluation section. But keep in mind, but I put huge watermarks on the teacher surveys. Number one, because we expect you to do those online anyway. You shouldn't be doing it here. But number two, because there is a possibility that before the summer's over that you might see a couple questions drop off the survey or be combined. And if anything, the surveys will be shorter rather than longer. We don't expect any more to be asked of you. But I just wanted to know, we don't feel like the student surveys need to change at all. So they will be good to go. And again, just like last year, we can provide you with ample copies so that you're not using your own clicks at school or your own money to make copies of student surveys. We can provide you with that. And just like with last year, one important thing that, and this is really my fault, that I think gets missed a lot as we go through the units is that for a lot of you, you already have a photo release that goes out from your school. And your principal may feel like that is adequate to cover CEEMS. I really just need an email from your principal, if that's the case, letting me know that that's fine. That the general photo release they have in the school also would cover anything that they do with CEEMS. If not, again, we have in here a copy of our photo release, which you can have your students complete, and we recommend you give it out whenever you give out all the rest of the parent paperwork, because otherwise you'll never get it back. And we can make you copies of that as well. So we have all that there. And I do not have community practice dates yet, because one of the things I want to do, because some of you know it was an issue last year, is that we had, I want to try to look at everybody's dates for parent-teacher conferences and try to avoid that. So I'm going to have to do a master spreadsheet and figure all that out for all the districts involved. That'll take a little time. But then I'll get some dates to you and kind of float that around, see what works for people. Then we'll determine them hopefully by the end of the summer. And just like we did this past year, our third meeting will be during the STEM conference. So that's when you will meet for the third time and do a focus group with Kathy Volpe. Okay. A couple things, I just want to share that, some of you have already been involved with this. The PD requirement. More and more we see some of our teachers are doing things at regional or national conferences, which we think is fantastic. You should be proud of the work that you're doing. It's very innovative. It's very cutting edge. There are a lot of people that are interested in it. Take advantage of that. We have money available, as you'll see in the next slide, to send people to conferences to present. Tom and I were just in Indianapolis on Saturday, and he presented in front of a group of teachers about, one of his units. And I think it was very well received. He did a great job. So look for these opportunities for yourself. Sign up. Remember, we have refreshments and supplies available for this. Food is a big motivator to get people to come to things, as you know, especially with teachers. Remember that we have in the evaluation section of your notebooks, we have the sign-in sheets, the evaluation forms, which again are not going to change. So, always have some of those on hand to give out to participants and to send to us. Now, there are some settings where the evaluation forms might not work. Let me know that, but sign-in sheets are very, very critical. no matter how you present, what venue. That way we know who you talked to, who received that PD. And again, one more point on there. Don't forget, too, that you can present in pairs and teams. A lot of you are here with other people from your schools. Take advantage of that resource. Or, if sometimes there's schools that work together on things, or you just have a teacher you really click with. Do it together. That can be a very invigorating thing as well. One other opportunity that some of you might want to take advantage of, well, a couple things, a couple ideas coming up. And there will be more. These are not the only two I'm going to find for you. But these are a couple to keep in mind. For the high school math teachers, Oak Hills High School has contacted us. They would like some of our teachers to work with their math teachers on a couple PD days this year. They've seen a lot of their science teachers go through the program, but they've not had any math teachers. And one of their assistant principals contacted me. He said, I go in and I observe these math teachers, and I'm seeing the same pedagogy I saw back when I was a student. We got to change some things up. So they want some of our teachers to work with their math teachers. If you're interested in that, please let me know. I probably will contact some of you that I think might do a good job with that. Also, on July 21st, we have a group of students coming to campus. They're middle school and high school students. It's through the Urban League. They're having a summit. And there will be two times during the day. And one of the times we don't even have any classes offered, so it's perfect. The other time, some of you might not be in class anyway. And the fellows are going to kind of be in charge, but we're going to create some design challenges for these students. But if you want to join in on that, I'll count that as one of your PDs, and you can get it out of the way before you even leave campus. The beauty of this is, let's say you have a great idea for a new unit, but you kind of want to test it out. You want to try it out on some students, see if it works. What a great opportunity to beta test something like that with some students that are coming here on campus anyway. So maybe you want to try out an activity. That would be a great opportunity for that. So let me know if you're interested in that. Okay. Most of you all know this already, but again, you got materials for units. What you won't have this year, which most of you had unless you've got an administrator coming late, is you won't have the Administrator Academy funds, most of you, but you will have still $300 per year per teacher. So think about how you can use that and use it wisely. Again, we had the purchasing form we have in the back of your binder. Some of you use that very well. Other people, and I think I've got Jamie's up here, just because, but many of you use this, not just Jamie, where you kind of gave me a spreadsheet. This is acceptable as well. Very nice. It's got, the key thing here is, I always need, even if it's just a few words, some sort of justification for what you want. I buy the weirdest things. And, somebody's going to ask me, why did you buy this person a fish tank, or why did you buy lemonade concentrate, and why did you buy blah, blah, blah? Well, then I've got to be able to tell them why. So even if it's just a few words, I'll need that, or if you put it in an email, and just a hyperlink with what you need. And then the other key thing here is don't forget the save your packing slips, please. I can tell you where to send those packing slips. You can mail them directly to me, or if you're going to see me in an upcoming meeting, or somebody's going to be at your school that you can pass them off, that's good. Most of you are pretty good about not buying things yourselves and then expecting reimbursement. As you know, it's always easier when I can buy it, because I never know, especially if you haven't checked with me first, is that's even something that you can be reimbursed for. Every once in a while, there was somebody that had something that it just made more sense for them to go out and pick it up and then to give me a receipt and I reimburse them. But those situations are few and far between, and you really should talk to me before you go out and do that, because otherwise, how do I even know, if this is going to be an acceptable purchase? There could be all kinds of things that could go wrong, and I don't want you spending your money and not getting reimbursed. So it's really important that you go through me for any kind of purchasing. Here's what is there any other questions that anybody has before I poor other group, they didn't get any chance for questions. They're probably very overwhelmed. What I would like you to do now is we're going to give time for you to meet with your resource team members and the fellows that will be assigned to you. We're going to do this a little differently than we did last year, and the whole way that we're going to think about coaching sessions is going to be different. If you look at your schedule and expectations, if you look at the pages prior to, like the 4 pages prior to the resource team and fellows tab, you want to pull out what's called a roadmap. And I can get it, I'll get it pulled up here. All right. Okay. So what we want to do, and most of you have this information on people already, but if you're assigned to something new, it'd be good to have it. First thing we're going to do is make sure you've got everybody's primary contact information and that they know your preferred email. So that if they email you over the summer, they're not emailing to your school account that you never check, and then there's a problem. Although, as Anchorman pointed out, there's a way that you can forward things directly to other from one email account to the other, and that would be a recommended way to do that as well. So we're going to go ahead and do that. The other thing we're going to do is, remember last year, and some of you gave this feedback on your evaluation, so we're making this change based on your feedback. You said that what would be annoying to some of you anyway is you'd be working on your units, and then, Mary would come up to you and say, "Oh, how you doing? Show me what you got." So you stop what you were doing, you show Mary, and then Tom would come then 5 minutes later and ask you the same question. And you're like, "Okay, I just showed Mary, now I got to show Tom, and I wasn't expecting any of this, and I wanted to get some work done." And so there was some frustration. So what we're going to do this year is we're going to have some check-in dates and times that you're going to preset with your resource team members and your fellows. So instead of people just randomly coming up to you, we're not going to have resource team members necessarily, quote-unquote, babysitting the work sessions anymore. They're going to set appointments with you. Now, if you need more than what's on your appointment schedule, email them. Say, "Hey, I'm really stuck. I need help." And I'm sure that they will be accommodating to that, and they'll welcome that. But what we want you to do is schedule several appointments. Now, what you could do is several appointments with a variety of people, one person at a time. Or if you're lucky enough, maybe you could get every member of your team all in the same place to talk with you a few times throughout the summer. That way, everybody kind of knows when you're going to have to report out on progress. You're prepared for it. And you know when you can kind of get their undivided attention as well. So we're going to spend some time this morning actually letting you set up those appointments. That way there's a little more autonomy that happens in this process. The other thing that we want to do is, and this again was part of your feedback from last year, you're not going to have to go to all the sessions that Cohort 3 is going to. Because a lot of things you already know how to do, right? You're experts now. In fact, some of you are leading those sessions, which we appreciate. Instead, as you can see on this document, I have some sessions are electives, some are required. But for you, the way it looks like, I think there are only four required workshop sessions. But we want you to choose at least 2 additional electives to attend. So 4 required, and we want you to pick, in consultation with your resource team members and your fellows, 2 electives that you feel like would most benefit you. Okay? And we do want to know what people are picking, and I'm going to let Pam talk in a minute because she's going to give more explanation on her workshop, which is unique. So don't let me forget Pam. But we're going to, so I want to see, what I want you to do is after you complete this document today, I want you to give me it, and then what I'm going to do is make a PDF scan and send it to you and every member of your team so that everybody's on the same page. And part of that too, we want to see what the workshops, are there some that are more popular than others, the elective ones? Are there some where nobody signed up? That's data that we need to know. So we want you to kind of consult with people and have an opportunity to talk. So the way we're going to work this session that's going to come up, actually, Pam, before I forget, why don't you go ahead and give a little more explanation about the service learning, because the one sentence I gave was not adequate. So I'm going to let Pam talk a little more. I apologize. So the way we want to set up this session is that first, I would like for the first 20 minutes, and actually before you even start, you can go out and help yourself to refreshments out on that table. So I'll give you about a couple minutes to do that. Then when you come back in, gather around your primary resource team member, connect with that person. We'll do that for about 20 minutes. Then we'll switch to the secondary resource team member, and then we will switch to the fellow that you're assigned to. And resource team members and fellows know that, if you're not involved talking to somebody, go ahead and join an existing group. And sometimes you can kind of make the most of those opportunities. So that's really what we have going for the rest of the day. After that portion is finished, you are, free to go or stay. If you want a place to work quietly, you're welcome to stay as well. But, you're not required to stay beyond that session. So remember, we're going to meet with people, and I want to get this from you by the end of the day. So if you want to take a couple minutes to go out and get a little bit of food, and then we'll have the resource team members kind of disperse themselves throughout the room.
So you